What's going on, King of Kings family? Pastor Eric here. Hope you're having a great start to your week. And I wanted to come to you tonight with a little bit more unpacking from yesterday's sermon, where I talked a lot about financial generosity. And so I thought it would be helpful to give a little bit of context to my journey of generosity that might be encouraging to you and maybe help you catch an imagination for what generosity, living generously, growing in your giving financially might look like. So I grew up in a home, and I don't really remember us being sort of uh, intentional about structuring our lives around generosity. We went to church, and I'm sure my parents gave to the church. I know that they would occasionally support causes. We supported a Compassion International kid for a number of years. Um, but I also saw a household that was living under a version of the consumption assumption that I talked about yesterday, where we would spend what we made, save what we could, and give what was left, if anything. And so when I grew up and graduated high school, went to college, and beyond that, that's really what I did. In college, I started getting involved in church, and at that point in time, I was working at a restaurant, and so when I would go to church, I had cash on hand. I had always had cash on hand, and so I'd throw, a 20 in the offering plate. Didn't really have much in the way of intentionality around it, though. It was more done out of obligation, kind of an afterthought. And that's pretty much what I did, through college and probably about the first 4 years after. When I graduated college and sort of had begun in the workforce, I found myself in some pretty significant credit card debt that I had accumulated and was trying to work my way out of that, just not really doing very well at it. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, and he started to talk to me about tithing, which, as I mentioned on Sunday, is traditionally understood as giving 10% of one's income, predominantly to the church, but you can also include other causes, nonprofits in that if you so choose. And he talked about how there was a blessing to be had in tithing that wasn't so much like I give a certain amount and therefore I'm blessed, but as I would work through the process of learning how to give generously financially, that I would be blessed spiritually because of that process, because of working through that. As I saw how God would provide, as I took seriously that which God cared about with my financial giving, that God would always find a way to make sure that what I cared about was taken care of. And so I started tithing pretty regularly, and I found that I was able to cut expenses enough to be able to give 10% of my income. Now, at that point in time, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, I did own a house. Um, and so I was able to do it, and it was sacrificial, but I did. It was achievable, and I did find it, to be beneficial. And then I lost my job. I was working for a food service, selling food to restaurants, and lost that job. And again, in talking to this friend of mine, he encouraged me to continue to tithe as a statement of faith. Now, my tithe dropped significantly because all I really had was my unemployment, but I tithed off of that, and anything else that that came in, I picked up an odd job here or there. Now, it's important to understand that this friend of mine was not a member of my church. He didn't have any real benefit in encouraging me to tithe. It was really out of his concern for me and a desire for me to grow spiritually and to grow in my understanding of generosity. And so I did. And then when I met Laura, and some of you have heard this story that I met Laura while I was unemployed, and it was really through the encouragement of her that I was able to move into a different work role. Laura is somebody who has been tithing her whole life. It was a value in her household, and she helped me to continue to see the value of it. And I got a job and started to tithe off of that income. And as I did, something amazing happened. The decision to limit my spending to make space for tithing caused me to evaluate my spending overall. And as the more intentional I was about what I spent my money on, the more thoughtful and mindful I was about what I spent my money on, the easier it was not only to tithe, but also to save and to make different decisions about what I spent my money on. I found myself no longer operating under the consumption assumption that instead of spending what I made, saving what I could, and giving whatever might be left over, I made the intentional decision to give a percentage of my income. And it was a sacrificial but achievable percentage. And over time, I was able to work my way up to tithing that 10% as it's commonly understood. Now, along the way, and this is the really cool part, along the way, I also paid off all of my debt while still being able to be generous financially. I was tithing and I was paying down all my debt. Simply put, I tithed my way out of debt, which I know sounds preposterous, right? Like how does that even work when you're sacrificially giving? How do you still pay down debt and save money and make sure that your needs are met? But that's what happened. And it really started with somebody challenging me to consider deciding to be generous financially first, and then make sure that those financial contributions were made, and then make spending decisions based off of what was remaining after I had given the percentage that I had committed to. And as I said on Sunday, I found that I could not outgive God, that there was always enough. And I really trust that as I continue this journey of generosity, there always will be enough as we do it as a household now. So I just really want to challenge you that if you don't do this already, where if you don't yet have a predetermined percentage of your income that you give that is sacrificial but achievable, I really want to challenge you to consider making a different decision. Pray about tithing, giving 10% of your income, or if you don't feel that's accessible or achievable yet, what some other number that is sacrificial but achievable. Doing it out of either a grateful heart or a broken heart, and giving to those places that reflect what's going on in your heart. Trusting that you cannot outgive God, and that in the process of growing your giving, the Spirit will help you to find the margin that you need to make different decisions about your finances. And of course, as you grow in your giving, hopefully you find King of Kings a worthy place to direct some of that growth. So I hope that's encouraging to you. I hope you can see some of your own story in the story that I've shared. If you have any questions about what it takes to grow in your giving, I'm certainly available to help you work through that. I think if the church is going to invite people into a deeper level of generosity, if the church is going to challenge people to grow in their giving in the direction of tithing, then the church also has to resource people to help them to do that. And I definitely have a heart for helping people get their finances figured out so that they can be generous, whether it's in the direction of the church or some other cause that they are passionate about. I worked in banking for 4 years. I've helped people with budgeting, help people with understand debt consolidation and paying down debt and the practices that can help with that. So I would love to help anybody who needs some development in that area where that's been a challenge. And I totally get that finances are one of the most anxious subjects in our culture. It's the number one cause of divorce. It's the thing that consumes so much of our headspace, particularly in our anxiety around making sure that we have enough. And so, if there's any way I can support in helping you to move in the direction of being able to grow in your generosity, not because we need as the church something from you, but it's something that as your pastor I want for you to really have the joy of living generously, because I've gotten to the point where giving away money is fun. Which I know doesn't sound normal, but it really is when you get to give and invest financially in the church or in causes, nonprofits, and to see that the impact that giving makes. It's a really, really cool thing to experience. So that's all for tonight. You'll hear again from me a little later on this week with some more details about the appeal that we are in. But I just wanted to come with you with that story, and I hope it's an encouragement to you. Have a great night. God bless.